We're not made that decision. I think I got it. Did you have like at least
You mind? No. She's mine. Two down.
Is my door locked? Oh, Garrison.
That's all right. I'll wait.
All right. All right, good afternoon. You may be seated. Back on the record. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to bring in the jury and Mr. Land. Let me just pass again. Is Mr. Newman's position still that he's not going to testify?
Yes.
All right. Let's go ahead and bring in the jury, please. Come on in, ladies and gentlemen. Come on in, ladies and gentlemen, make yourself comfortable. You may be seated in any seat. Come on in, ladies and gentlemen, make yourself comfortable. You may be seated in any seat, or you can find your favorite seat. I know we're all creatures of habit. Sometimes you have a favorite seat. You can sit anywhere you want to. You can sit in your seat, but technically, assigned seat. You can sit anywhere you want to. But as I said, I know we're all creatures of habit. It's like being at home. There's a favorite seat you have that you want to sit at in your living room or your dining room, and you can sit in that seat. But technically, there's no assigned seat. You can sit anywhere you want to. Appreciate everyone's present and counsel. You may be seated. All right, ladies and gentlemen, the state has rested its case, as I mentioned to you earlier. At this point in time, the defense may proceed. You may proceed.
This round of defense calls Ms. Melanie White.
You may.
Go ahead and have a seat for me. Raise your right hand. You solemnly swear affirm that the testimony shall give this court should be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
You may lower your hand. Please state your family name for the record.
Melanie White, Melanie White.
Good afternoon, Ms. White.
Hi.
Would you please tell the jury what it is you do for a living?
I sell real estate, residential real estate.
I just wanted to make sure that we speak loudly just so everybody can hear the court reporter can as well, okay?
Okay.
You said you sell real estate?
Yes.
And who do you do that for?
Coldwell Banker.
And how long have you been working with Coldwell Banker?
This is my 30th year.
Okay. Now, Ms. White, do you know someone by the name of Hemy Neuman?
Yes.
Okay. How do you know Hemy Neuman?
Hemy and his wife, Relly, were a referral to me from my company to help find them a home in 2006.
Do you see Mr. Neuman in the courtroom here today?
Yes, I do.
Okay, could you please describe him for me?
He's the gentleman with the kippah on and the beard.
I just ask that the record reflect that Ms. White has identified my client, Mr. Neuman, for the record.
You may.
Now, you made mention of what I call his yarmulke and his beard. Is this how Mr. Neuman looked when you first met him?
No.
Okay, and what was different?
He was clean shaven and he didn't wear a kippah all the time.
Not all the time?
Correct.
Now, when your first introduction to Mr. Neuman, was that in person or was that over the phone?
Over the phone.
Okay. And what was the purpose of that conversation?
To introduce myself, that I was chosen to help he and his wife, his family, find a home in Atlanta.
Okay. And do you know where they were relocating from?
I believe Florida.
Did you meet the whole family at once, or did you meet Mr. Neuman first?
No, I only met Mr. Neuman first, and he and I went out for a few times to look at homes first.
Now, at some point, did you come to meet the rest of Mr. Newman's family?
I met his wife, his then wife, yes.
Okay. And do you know what his wife's name was?
Relly?
Okay. And you said that you met her?
Yes.
And is that in person?
Yes.
And when was this, ma'am?
2006?
2006, all right.
So in 2006, you said that you first met with him in regards to trying to find a house?
Yes.
Okay. Were you able to determine any number of houses that could be possible houses they could buy?
Sure.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, did you have any conversations about purchasing the house with his wife, Relly?
Yes.
Okay. So let's talk about the house that they purchased. You said this was 2006?
Yes.
Okay. Was this one of the houses that you had put onto your list?
It was not.
Okay. Could you tell the jury how you came to find the house that they ended up purchasing?
Pardon me. There was a particular subdivision that the Newmans both liked. One side of the subdivision was a little pricier than the other, and they really liked the subdivision. So I sent out a letter to everybody on the other side of the subdivision that was lower priced to see if anybody had plans of moving soon, and I let them know that I had a buyer.
Now, was this done before or after you met Relly?
After.
Okay, after. Now, is the house that they ended up purchasing, was that one of the houses on your original list?
No.
Okay. Was there anything different about this particular house than the houses that you had had on your list?
It was not on the market. A seller contacted me and said, we're thinking about moving. Please tell us what your buyer wants, and let's see if we can make a deal.
Did my client, Mr. Neumann, ever tell you why they did not want to buy one of the houses on the list you had prepared?
No, we just didn't like them.
Did his, as far as you remember, in helping to put an offer on and I guess eventually close on this house, did his wife play any role in that?
Oh, yes. Well, in deciding on the home, yes.
Okay. Now, how would you describe your relationship with my client and his family during this period of time?
They were my clients.
Did you have any personal relationship with them?
Well, when
Excuse me, outside of the professional context?
No, sir.
So you were able to end up helping them purchase a house?
Yes.
Okay. And was that in 2006?
Yes.
Okay. Now, after the house has been purchased, would you tell the jury about any communication that you had specifically with Hemy Neuman after the house was purchased?
Yes, I called Hemy probably once or twice a year over the next few years just to check in, see how he was, see how the house was, see how the kids were, and see if he had any referrals for me for other business.
Was this a standard part of your operating procedure as a real estate agent?
Yes.
Okay. Now, in making any of these calls and the inquiries you talked about with his family and about the kids, was this still all within the professional context, or was there something personal about it?
Strictly professional.
Now, in just a minute, I want to fast forward to 2010, but in the period of time in between the sale of this house in 2006 and then later on in 2010, did you do any socializing with the Neumans?
I did not.
Okay. Now, Ms. White, are you Jewish?
I am?
Okay. And did you know the Neumans to be Jewish?
Yes.
Okay. Did you all attend services together, anything of that nature?
No.
These communications that you talked about, making phone calls and speaking with Hemy or some of the Neumann family, did you initiate that contact or did the Neumans initiate it?
I did.
Okay. Every time?
Yes. Unless it was a return phone call.
As if they had missed a call and they were calling you back?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, at any period of time in 2010, did Mr. Neumann reach out and make contact with you?
Yes.
Okay. Can you tell me about what the context of that communication was?
He wanted to meet for lunch and talk to me about possibly doing a short sale on his home.
Okay. Just because you've mentioned it, would you mind explaining to the jury what a short sale is?
Sure. A short sale is when there's a mortgage on the home and the people are upside down. They can't make the mortgage payment. Usually 3 months or so they don't make a mortgage payment. So they go to the person who holds the mortgage, like the bank, and they ask them if they will take less than what is owed on the home so that the home can be sold for less so that the people that are in trouble can get out from under it without being hurt too badly.
Do you remember when you were contacted about this possible short sale?
The end of July, beginning of August.
Of what year?
2010.
So the end of July, early August 2010. And was that initial contact, was that made over the phone?
Yes.
Okay. Now, at any point in reference to the short sale that you have discussed, did you set up a face-to-face or in-person meeting with Mr. Hemy Neumann?
Mr. Neumann asked me to meet him for lunch. Yes, we set a lunch up.
So he asked you to meet him for lunch?
Yes.
Okay. Did he make any suggestions of where that meeting would take place?
In Sandy Springs.
Okay. Do you know what the purpose of Sandy Springs was?
I think he was trying to be convenient for me because it was close to my home and my office.
And where did you in fact meet in Sandy Springs?
Yes, Sunflower Cafe.
Sunflower Cafe. Now, you told us that the initial contact was at the end of July or the beginning of August. When did this meeting at Sunflower Cafe take place?
Probably within a week
Okay.
of that.
Would that mean August 2010?
Yes.
Okay. What was your expectation, Ms. White, of that meeting at Sunflower Cafe?
Helping Hemy and his family figure out if they should do a short sale on their home in order to relieve the financial obligations.
Did you have any other expectation besides the real estate agent-client relationship? Did you expect anything else out of this meeting?
No, sir.
Did you, in fact, discuss the short sale?
Yes.
Okay. Were there any specific plans made in regards to possibly putting the house on the market or anything of that nature?
Yes, I was to do a market analysis and see what the value of the home is or was.
And what does that mean to make a market analysis, just for those of us that don't know?
Compare the houses that have sold in the same area, the same subdivision with the same like characteristics to see what the value is.
Now, besides the short sale and the market analysis work, did you and Mr. Neuman discuss anything else?
Yes, he mentioned that he had left Relly the night before.
And you knew Relly to be his wife?
Yes.
Did he tell you where he was going to stay or where he was living during this time?
He said he was at the Crestwood Suites in Marietta on 120.
Did he tell you why he had left the house?
They weren't getting along. They had not been getting along, and the financial strain was taking a toll on them, and Relly was not working and really never did work to help with the finances with the family.
Did this divulgence of personal information, did this prompt any questions from you directed at Mr. Neuman?
Yes, sir.
Okay, what did you ask him?
I asked him if there was someone else.
And what did he respond to you?
There was someone he was fond of at work.
Okay, use the phrase, someone he was fond of. Is that your phrase, or was that the phrase Mr. Neuman used?
He may have said fond of or liked.
Okay. Besides saying that he liked or was fond of this person from work, did he give you any other specific information about this individual?
No, not really.
Anything about her marital status or whether she had a family, anything like that?
I don't believe at that meeting.
Okay. But at some point you learned some of that information?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And what in regards to this person's marital status and family did you learn?
I learned that she was also part of the Jewish community and that she was married with 2 small children.
Now, you mentioned that you had gone on to this meeting with the expectation of getting work.
Yes.
When you are confronted with this information, what are you thinking?
That it's wrong?
Are you referencing that he's talking about he is fond of someone while being married?
Well, that, and I just am there for business. I'm not there to find out personal things.
Okay. Did you vocalize any opinion to him back at the Sunflower Cafe?
No, sir.
Okay. Were you just mostly listening?
Yes.
Okay. And who did most of the talking during that conversation?
Well, when it was about the personal things, it was Hemy.
Okay. Okay. So after that meeting, you said that you had been, you were going to do the market analysis work.
Yes.
Okay. So did you have contact with Hemy Neuman again in regards to said market analysis work?
Yes, usually I will perform the market analysis on the computer, then I will email it to the client, and then I will call the client and say, let's look it over and discuss it.
And did you have those type of communications with him in regards to this market analysis?
We never really talked about it.
Okay. And what do you mean by that?
I talked to Hemy many times on the phone and would ask him how the process was going to apply for the short sale, but he never really answered that information about the house.
Okay.
It was always personal things.
You said you talked to him many times.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Are you talking about many times after you'd had this meeting at Sunflower Cafe?
Yes.
Okay. Now, were most of your interaction and communication with him, was that based on you reaching out to communicate with him?
No, sir.
Okay. So in the inverse, was it Mr. Neuman reaching out and communicating with you?
Yes, it was
Okay.
him.
And is it fair to say that you were expecting this to be about the real estate work?
Yes, sir.
But what was it about? What was he calling you about?
He was calling me to get advice about the person that he liked at work. He didn't understand the female mind, I guess, and was trying to get a female friend to help him understand.
Now, is he continuing to talk to you about his marital issues?
Yes,
Okay. And what is he telling you about that?
I believe he went home, moved back in home about a week later.
Okay. But he's continuing to call you in regards to talking to you about this new woman.
Yes, but when he called, I didn't always know it was about that.
And you said many times. Can you quantify it all? How many times he was calling you about this?
30 times?
Okay. Can you describe his mood or demeanor when he would call and tell you these things?
I knew him to be a very even keel person. Didn't show a lot of emotion, and he was the same person.
No. Now, what was your reaction to getting bombarded with these 30 phone calls, not about work?
I'm going to object as to the relevance of her reaction.
Sustained.
Fair enough. Has you done anything, Ms. White, to invite these conversations, to become a confidant?
No, sir.
Now, at some point, did you and Mr. Neuman have another in-person meeting?
One more, yes, in September.
Okay, and are we still talking about September of 2010?
2010, yes, thank you.
Now, who asked for that meeting?
Hemy did.
Hemy did. You had told us before that he chose the place for the first meeting. Who chose the place here for this second meeting?
Hemy did. He suggested Perimeter Mall at the food court.
And what did you expect the conversation at Perimeter Mall food court to be about?
About the short sale of his home.
Okay. Now, when this meeting started, do you remember what you all talked about?
He had a London trip planned with the person that he was fond of at work. And it may have been at that time that he told me her full name. I honestly don't remember when I knew that.
Okay. At some point, did you learn her full name?
Yes.
Did you learn that from Mr. Neuman?
Yes.
Now, you said that he was telling you about a London trip. Did you all actually discuss the short sale at that meeting?
Yes.
Okay. For how long did you discuss that?
Not long.
Was the focus of the conversation about this trip?
Yes.
Okay. Do you remember when he told you he was going on this trip?
Yes.
Okay. Tell me what you remember.
I remember he and Andrea were leaving on the trip on Yom Kippur, which is a very religious holiday in the Jewish faith.
Okay.
And typically people don't travel on Yom Kippur.
Okay. And just for those of us who do not know, would you please educate us on what Yom Kippur is?
Yom Kippur is the day of repentance after we've had the Jewish New Year, which is 10 days earlier. We spend a full day in temple. We fast and we pray and repent for the sins of the previous year.
Now, did he tell you how he felt about this upcoming trip?
He was excited, looking forward to it.
Did he indicate to you whether he was excited and looking forward to the work prospects of GE or some other reason?
I believed going with Andrea.
At any point during this meeting, did you give him your opinion about what he's been telling you?
I don't remember.
Okay. Now, did you ever talk to Mr. Neumann while he was on the trip to London?
No.
Okay. Did you have an opportunity to talk to him once he had returned to the United States?
Yes.
Okay. Did he tell you about the trip?
Yes.
Okay. What did he tell you about the trip?
He told me that he and Andrea got very, very close emotionally.
Did he give you any specifics?
That they could finish each other's sentences and that they had determined that they felt like they were soulmates.
Okay. Now, the word soulmate, again, was that the word Mr. Neumann used, or is that your word?
Mr. Neumann.
Okay. And just so that we're all clear, was he indicating to you that he believed Andrea was his soulmate?
Yes.
Was he also indicating to you that he believed Andrea thought him to be her soulmate?
Yes.
Did he tell you any specifics about their hotel accommodations?
Yes, they had adjoining rooms. That's with a door in between two rooms, usually locked.
Did he tell you anything else about the door in between the two rooms and whether it's locked or not?
I don't recall if they asked them to unlock it, but it was not locked, but because he did mention at some point, I believe Andrea came into his room.
Okay. What did he tell you happened once Andrea came into his room?
That they laid on the bed and they cuddled and fondled each other and watched TV.
Did he tell you anything else?
That she got up from the bed and went to the bathroom.
And not to embarrass you or anybody else, but what did he tell you happened in the bathroom?
That she went in to masturbate.
At this point, when he's telling you this, you get any impression that he's in love with this person?
Objection, Your Honor.
What? I'm sorry.
Speculation.
Sustain. Rephrase.
Sure. Let's see. May I approach, Your Honor, to
Yes,
retrieve
sir.
a few
Approach
things?
you, me?
Yes, sir, to retrieve a few of the items.
Oh, sure you can. You bring all the items you need.
Thank you.
And of course, you can give her all the exhibits you need.
There it is.
All right.
Thank you. Now, in the time period after this London trip, did Mr. Neumann ever send you any emails in regards to Andrew Sneiderman?
Yes.
Do you remember an opportunity after that trip where he forwarded you a series of emails between himself, Mr. Neumann, and Ms. Sneiderman?
Yes.
Okay. May I approach the witness?
You may.
Ms. White, I'm going to show you what has been previously marked and admitted as states number 28. If you would please take a look at this quickly. Excuse me. It's not.
Yes.
Okay. Do you recognize states number 28?
Yes.
Okay. How do you recognize that document?
Because it was forwarded to me on September 28th, 2010, from Hemy.
Okay. Do you recognize your email address on States number 28?
Yes,
Could I retrieve it back just briefly?
sure.
I'd ask Ms. White if you'd read to the jury the first page of States number 28, which is part of the stipulation, page 7592, starting with the email he sent to you, and then going up to the actual email he forwarded.
Yes, sir.
If you would read that to the jury, please.
This is from Hemy Neuman to me, Monday, September 27th, 2010. Says subject line, sorry. And Hemy wrote, read from the bottom up, what do you think? Thanks, Hemy. Then Hemy Neuman, September 28th, 2010, to me, subject line, sorry. I guess I should put it in context for you. We left the flight with a kiss, knowing that I was traveling, and I told her that we shouldn't really communicate over the next 1 to 2 weeks. She wholeheartedly agreed. By the way, she did tell me that one of the things that kills her is that I am the only one she can talk to about us and Rusty, that everyone else will be so disappointed. So she tells people snippets controlling the whole story. She also says that it won't change the outcome, that she is staying no matter what, so any advice is pointless. Anyway, on Sunday, she sent me a text, and then we went back and forth a few times regarding how the kids are, great, etc. I did give her advice that she must concentrate on them. Today, as much as it killed me, I did not contact her. She pinged me that she wanted to talk to me about some work thing. Again, some chat and text, and we agreed she would call me at 1 while I was waiting for my flight. She called and we spent 15 to 20 minutes talking about the kids and the presents that we got them. She paid, but we chose them together, etc. I told her briefly that we never talked about my situation and that it was quite messy. I told her that I couldn't have sex with someone I didn't love, and that it was killing me pretending to be someone I wasn't. It took 2 minutes. Then we talked for another 10 to 15 minutes. That's when the exchange below started. At some point, she canceled a meeting we had scheduled for the next week because of the training she has. I wrote back with a sad face. She wrote back ditto. There was more text exchanging throughout the night. I don't want to lose her. Hemy.
Thank you. May I approach again, Your Honor?
You bet.
For the record, Ms. White, I'm going to show you a portion of the stipulations from States Exhibit number 5A. I'm going to draw your attention to the stipulation page of States Exhibit 5A, page 4670. I'd ask you to take a moment and review that page and look up at me once you've had an opportunity to do so.
Just this one page? Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, and how do you recognize page 4670 of States 5A?
This was, at the beginning, this was Hemy Neuman to me on September 28th, 2010. Would you like me to read it?
Yes, if you would please read. How do you identify the
After
text of that page?
the next part of the text, I apologize, the first part of the text was my response to Hemy.
Okay. Was this in response to the email that you just read?
Yes.
Okay. Would you please read that to the jury?
Hemy, it continues to sound like she is lifting you up and knocking you down because she herself displays emotions that are up and down. Yet always in the end, she continues to tell you that she is not leaving her marriage. I am not sure if she's trying to convince you or herself. In my opinion, a person does not have an affair, whether emotional or physical or both, unless they have a portion of their heart and foot out the door. It is not an easy decision to make knowing one is contemplating ending a marriage, especially with children. It is a process that can take a long time. Your relationship is escalating to the physical intimacy you had in London, which only makes her much more remorseful and confused. Believe me, she is dreaming about it, wishing it could be, figuring out how she could possibly think about ending the marriage to be with you. Then she will get angry at herself for thinking that way and push you away. It is a seesaw of emotions and will continue to be that way. Hold on. You must be patient and take care of yourself and your family. You're going to have a lot come down on you once you positively announce your marriage is over and there is no way to get it back.
Can I approach to retrieve, Your Honor?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Now, Ms. White, I believe you had, before we got into those emails, you had told us about the trip to London in September.
Yes?
At any point, did Mr. Neuman tell you about any other trip that he was taking with Ms. Sneiderman?
Yes, a trip to Greenville,
Okay.
South Carolina.
Okay. When did you learn about this trip to Greenville, South Carolina?
There were 2 trips that I knew of to Greenville, South Carolina. One was in August. I never knew any details of that trip.
He just told you he was going on the trip?
Yes.
Okay.
Or may have been on a trip. I don't recall.
Okay.
London was the September trip, and I believe there was another trip to Greenville in October 2010.
Okay. In relation to the time in October when he went on this trip, when did Mr. Neuman contact you and tell you about the trip?
On his way to pick Andrea up?
You mean that he called you like while he was in the car?
Yes.
And what did he tell you about this trip to Greenville?
That he was very excited about going.
Once again, was it your... Strike that. Did you vocalize your opinion at this point to him?
Yes.
Okay, and what did you tell him?
To leave her alone, go back to his wife and his family, let her go back to stay with her family.
Did you have an opportunity to talk to Mr. Neuman while he was on this Greenville trip?
He called me from Greenville.
Okay. Can you tell us when during this trip he called you, if you remember?
I believe it was a Saturday evening about 9 or 9:30.
Okay. What did he tell you during this conversation?
That they had a drink, and
No, let me interrupt you. When you say they, Mr. Neuman and who?
Mr. Neuman and Andrea Schneiderman had a drink. They were sitting out on a bench looking out on a lake, had gone up and had a nice dinner, and were getting ready to go back up to their hotel rooms.
And that's at the point in which he called you?
Yes, what should he do?
What should he do? Now, I anticipate that we would all know your answer to this, but what did you tell him this way?
Go to his room, lock his door, leave her alone.
Did you hear from Mr. Neuman again while he was on the trip?
No, sir.
Okay. Did you hear anything else about this trip once he had returned?
Yes, sir.
Okay. When in relationship to this trip did you hear about what had the ongoings of the Greenville trip?
I believe it was the day he got back, after he had dropped Andrea off at home.
Okay. Did he tell you about the work he had done on the trip?
No, sir.
And what did he tell you about?
He told me that they got very close physically and that she, quote, gave in,
And what does that mean, gave in?
had intercourse.
Did you have any other face-to-face meetings with Mr. Neuman after this?
No, sir.
Did you have an opportunity to communicate with him in regards to his relationship with Andrea Sneiderman after the Greenville trip?
Yes.
What did he tell you about that?
I don't understand.
After they had been back from the trip several days, did Mr. Neuman contact you with any update about their relationship?
Yes, sir. Andrea Schneiderman had let Hemy Neuman know that she felt like she needed to cool it with the emotional personal relationship with him and keep it strictly business.
Now, is this kind of an example of what you had referred to in that email,
Yes.
the emotions?
Yes.
Now, in November of 2010, did you ever come to know of a shooting that had occurred in Dunwoody?
Yes.
How did you come to hear about that shooting?
I'd had foot surgery 2 days prior. My mother had gone to my office, which is right behind the Dunwoody Prep School. My mother called me and said, I may be a little while getting home. There are ambulances and helicopters and police everywhere, and I don't know what's going on. So I turned on the TV, and I saw that there had been a shooting.
Did you ever come to learn the victim's name in that shooting?
Yes, it was on the news.
Okay. After you learned the identity of the victim in that shooting, what did you do next?
I called Hemy.
You called Hemy.
Yes.
What did you talk to Mr. Neuman about?
That it was pretty close to home that Rusty had just been shot, and I asked him if he did it.
And what did he tell you?
No.
Did you ask him any more specific or any more pointed questions?
I asked him if he hired someone to do it.
And what did he tell you?
He told me he knew that I knew that he couldn't afford to hire someone.
Did you have any contact with Mr. Neuman after you placed that phone call and asked him if he had killed Rusty Sneiderman?
Yes.
Tell me about that communication.
It may have been a few days later. We communicated again. He was planning on going to the funeral and planning on going to the Schneiderman's home to sit Shiva, which is a memorial that Jewish people do in the evenings after a death. And we discussed who the possible murder could be, and he had mentioned that Rusty had a business dealing with a person from California he was thinking about hiring to do voiceovers for some kind of business, and that he was staying with the Schneidermans in the basement. The business deal went south, and so the person went back to California, and Mr. Neuman said that possibly he was the one who killed Rusty.
Did he give you any other theories?
Maybe a few more days later, we were talking again, and he, I was just very upset about the whole thing, and he offered that maybe it was the Taliban.
Now, these conversations, is he calling you?
Yes.
How many times did Mr. Neuman contact you after you asked him had he killed Rusty Sneiderman?
Maybe twice.
And you all talked about the shooting and the way it possibly happened?
Yes. Yes.
May I have just a moment, Your Honor?
You may.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have no further questions. You can swear.
All right, Mr. Jennings, you may cross-examine if you wish.
Yes, sir. White, how are you doing today?
Okay, how are you?
I'm doing well. Had a few questions for you. Let's start here. How long have you known Hemy Neuman?
Since 2006.
Since 2006, 2006?
Yes.
All right. And you met with him about his house for the first time. When I say his house, I mean the short sale for the first time when?
In August of 2010.
Okay. All right. Your Honor, may I approach the board?
Yes, sir, you may.
And y'all had a conversation initially about the short sale, correct?
Yes,
And you've explained to us what a short sale means.
Yes.
Right? And when you were having this conversation about the short sale, you also talked about personal stuff as well, correct?
I didn't, he did.
He did. He talked to you about personal
Yes.
stuff. And he told you he had just moved out of his house the night before.
Yes.
All right. Let's talk about his demeanor while y'all are having this conversation. You okay with that?
Yes.
All right. Did he seem depressed?
No, sir.
Did he tell you he was thinking about committing suicide because he had moved out of his house the night
No,
before?
sir.
You've known him since 06 or 2006, correct?
Yes.
Pretty much the same old Hemy, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. And this is the August 2010 meeting.
Mr. Jones, I don't think she can see the date. You want her to be able to see that information?
No, I'll just tell her.
Okay.
I'll just tell her what.
That's fine.
Now,
Could you slide that up a little so she can see it if you're going to ask her? I mean,
yes,
to- to-
absolutely, yes, sir. Yes,
So
sir.
she can see what you have written.
Give me just a second.
Push it forward.
What I can do is I can move it in front of this.
That's fine. Can you see that, Ms. White?
Yes, sir.
No depression, no suicide, same old Hemy in office, right?
Yes.
All right. While you're talking about this meeting, you and Hemy talk about finances, right?
Yes.
His finances in particular.
Yes.
People don't talk about short selling a home unless they're having some financial problems, right?
Correct.
During the course of the conversation about his finances, he talked about his wife, right?
Yes.
In fact, he said that the reason they were having so much financial trouble was because his wife hadn't had a job the whole time they've been married.
Yes, that was part of the reason, and the twins were at Georgia Tech.
The twins at Georgia Tech, and the other part of the reason was that his wife hadn't had a job.
That's correct.
When's the next time y'all meet?
I'm sorry, what?
When is the next time that y'all meet face to face?
We had 2 meetings face-to-face during the course of August to December, and that was in August at Sunflower Cafe and September at Perimeter Mall Food Court.
And this is the meeting where y'all talked about the London trip, correct?
Yes, sir.
And this was before the London trip, so you're talking about him as he's going to go on, he's talking about going on the London trip. He's anticipating it.
Yes, sir.
And he's excited about going on a trip with this woman, correct? That he
Looking
told you
forward
about.
to it, yes.
He's looking forward to it. And he's already told you about her and work and what's going on between them, or at least that he's fond of her, correct?
Yes.
During this conversation in September, did he seem any different than the Hemy you had known since 2006?
No.
Did he seem depressed or out of his mind or anything like that?
No.
Same old Hemy.
Yes, sir.
After he gets back from London, you and him have another conversation, correct?
Yes,
Is this face-to-face, over the phone? How was this conversation?
over the phone.
All right. He tells you about the things that happened while he, the defendant, and Andrew Sneiderman were actually in London, correct?
Yes, sir.
He tells you that they were in the same room together while they were in London, correct?
They weren't checked into the same room, but at some point they were in the same room.
Fair enough. At some point, they were in the same room together.
Yes, sir.
Both bodies in the room together.
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, you know Andrew is married,
Yes, sir.
and you know Hemy's married.
Yes, sir.
He tells you they're laying on the bed, and he's fondling her, correct?
Yes.
She's fondling him, correct?
Yes.
They're fondling each other, right?
Yes.
Okay. They're, would you describe it as, I think you've described it before, as petting?
Yes.
All right. I think you said they did everything but have intercourse at this particular time that they were in a room together, right?
Based on what Hemy told me, correct.
All right. And she being Andrea, gets up and goes to the restroom, right?
Yes.
And while she's in the restroom, she goes in there and she finishes herself off, right?
Correct.
She masturbates, right?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Hemy comes back from London, correct?
Correct.
And you and him have a phone conversation, and this is what y'all were talking about, among other things.
Correct.
All right. Is it September or October?
It was, London was September. They left on Yom Kippur.
Well, the post conversation.
That was after, oh, it was still September.
Still September. All right. Delusional when you talk to him on the phone?
No, sir.
Out of his mind?
No, sir.
Does he seem down in the dumps and depressed?
No, sir.
I think you described to the jury earlier that Hemy was pretty much like this, pretty even, right?
Yes, sir.
And so it's fair to say that when you talk to him after the London trip that counsel asked you about, same old Hemy.
Yes, sir.
Now, you've known him at this point, it's 2010 at this point, for, what is this, 4 years?
Yes, sir.
All right. So the next time y'all talked was October?
Yes, sir.
All right, and that was a phone conversation, right?
Yes, sir.
And he's on his way to Greenville, right?
Yes, sir.
And does he call you before he goes to Greenville first, or on his way to Greenville first?
Before.
Before. And he's excited about going to Greenville with Andrea.
Yes.
All right. And he tells you that they're going together, essentially, correct?
Yes.
All right. And when he gets there, he actually calls you from Greenville, correct?
Yes.
All right. And again, at some point, you find out that they end up in the same room, right?
Yes.
And while they're in the room, he tells you that she gave in, right?
Yes.
All right. Meaning that they had sex together, correct?
Yes.
Okay. During this conversation in October, all right, let's fast forward and go to the next month. Anything different about Hemy in October?
No, sir.
Delusions, or is he acting out of his mind or crazy or anything like that?
No, sir.
All right. Same old Hemy?
Yes, sir.
Tell you anything about any suicide thoughts or anything like that?
No, sir.
Now, after the trip, counsel asks you, after he gets back from Greenville, y'all have another conversation, correct?
Yes.
And he tells you that essentially Andrea has, she's become devastated. She feels terrible about what she's doing, correct?
Yes.
And she wants to cut it off, right?
Yes.
And she wants to strictly business, right?
Yes,
And it's fair to say that Hemy's upset about this. He's concerned about this.
yes.
All right. Other than the fact that he was concerned that the woman that he was involved in an affair with didn't want to have the affair anymore, did he seem unusually depressed or anything like that?
No, sir.
Did he tell you, oh, Andrea doesn't want to have an affair with me anymore, and so, I'm going to kill myself?
No, sir.
Same old Hemy.
Yes, sir.
All right. You talked to him after Rusty Sneiderman is killed,
Yes, sir.
and that's in November, correct? November 18th?
Yes, sir.
All right. And is your conversation with him on November the 18th, or do you remember, was it the 18th, the 19th, 20th, what are we talking about?
It was the 18th.
The 18th. All right, so do you call him, or does he call you?
I called him
You called him, and why did you call him?
to ask him if he had heard that Rusty had died and it was shot, and ask him if he did it.
All right. Was this all close to home for you?
It was pretty close to home.
Okay, was it both close to home, physically close to your home, and also emotionally and psychologically close to home?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so physically, how far were you from the incident? Or was
Well,
your
my
house,
office.
rather? Your
my,
office.
My office was right close to the incident.
Okay.
I wasn't there physically at that time.
All right, so when you say it was emotionally and psychologically close to home, how do you mean?
I mean that I had just heard about Andrea Sneiderman, had just been introduced to Rusty Sneiderman via email from Hemy, and that he was having an affair with Andrea, and then all of a sudden he's dead.
It concerned you because Mr. Neuman was sleeping with the victim's wife,
Yes, sir.
and you knew that,
Yes, sir.
and that's why you called Mr. Neuman.
Yes, sir.
And when you called Mr. Neuman, you asked him if he had heard about it. That's the first thing you asked him, right? If he had heard about it.
Yes, sir.
How did he respond when you asked him if he had heard about it?
Yes, he was so upset for Andrea, he didn't know what to do.
He said he was upset.
Yes.
And after he told you he was upset, did you immediately ask him, did you do it, or was there other conversation before that?
I just said, Hemy, did you do it?
And he denied it.
Correct.
In fact, exactly what did he say? What were the words he used? Was it just a flat no, or was it a no with an explanation?
No, it was no. I believe it was just no. I don't recall.
Okay. And when he told you no, did you leave it alone? Did you drop it, or did you ask him something else?
No, I asked him if he had someone do it.
And he
If
told
he-
you he didn't have enough money to pay someone to do it.
Correct.
Okay. How did you respond to that?
Probably said, okay, it's just too close to home.
Okay. So how was it that you all end up talking about this again?
Because he was going to go to the funeral in Sit Shiva, and he called to talk about that.
Now, you didn't go to the funeral and you didn't sit Shiva, did you?
No, sir, I'd had surgery.
Okay.
And I didn't know them.
And you did not know them. The second time that you and he talk about this incident,
Yes.
he tells you that, in fact, he has theories about what could have happened, correct?
That's correct.
All right. He's denied it, and now he's giving you theories about what could have happened.
Correct.
All right. And, in fact, he's telling you that there's somebody that stayed at their house that Rusty knew, correct?
Correct.
He's talking about someone that Rusty and Andrea both knew, correct?
Yes.
And he's telling you that that person, in fact, could have been the person that committed the murder, right?
Yes.
That's what he's telling you, right?
Yes, sir.
And then he goes beyond that and he's telling you some theory about how the Taliban could have potentially been responsible for this, correct?
Yes.
At no time did he admit to having anything to do with this.
No, sir.
Let's go back a little bit. I want to ask you some questions about a time period around September or October of that year. Okay?
Okay, yes, sir.
Did you have a conversation with Hemy Neuman about Rusty Sneiderman?
Yes.
All right. And what was this conversation about?
I don't recall if it was September or October, but Hemy was due for a promotion or thought he was going to get a promotion at GE, and he was passed up, and he was not happy about that. So he had started talking to Rusty because Rusty was no longer doing the job he was doing, and he was looking for a business adventure or something to go into, and that Rusty had mentioned to Hemy that Hemy could be Rusty's CFO if he found a business.
So, Rusty Sneiderman,
Yes, sir.
the man who was killed,
Yes, sir.
was going to hire Hemy Neuman, the defendant, as a CFO for his company.
Yes, sir.
And this was, you said you don't remember the exact, can you give us a time frame? Are we talking about before September or after September?
It was September or October.
September or October?
Correct.
Now, and this is September or October of 2010.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did you have occasion to have a conversation with Hemy about helping Rusty out with
Yes.
his business?
Yes.
And when was this conversation?
It was the same time period. Perhaps even the same conversation.
And what exactly did the defendant ask you to do?
Well, Rusty was also looking for possible real estate adventures, so he wanted me to be introduced to Rusty, which I was, pardon me, via email, and had spoken to him on the phone, and was supposed to have a lunch meeting with Rusty in December for real estate adventure. And Hemy knew that my former husband was an attorney, a business attorney, and I know that my former husband has a lot of business contacts, and people always buying businesses, selling businesses. So yes, that's
So-
what it was about.
So Hemy asked you to find a lawyer or talk to a lawyer for Rusty.
I don't recall that that's how it happened. I think he knew what my former husband did, and we just kind of talked about it.
You talked about it. Did you, in fact, do something as a result of it? Did you
Yes, sir. I introduced Rusty and my former husband via email.
Okay. Now, was there another time that you had a conversation with Hemy about Rusty around I believe it may have been the Greenville trip?
Yes, Hemy had been at the Schneiderman's home, Andrew and Rusty, and I don't know for what reason, but Rusty had told Hemy that he trusted him with his wife and trusted nobody more for her to go out of town with than with Hemy.
And this was
Before the Greenville trip.
All right, which would have been
The
in what
second
month?
one,
The second?
October.
October.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, let me just pause here. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been going about an hour with the assistant Deputy Garrett. I'm going to give you your afternoon stretch break. I just have back to the jury box, Deputy Garrett, in 10 minutes. All rise.
may be seated.